Mohammed, can you unmute your mic? Mute your mic, please.
Kabat ini orang memang galak. Kabat ini. Allah.
السلام عليكم.
Mute your mic. Good evening, everyone. Please confirm if you can hear me. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, that's nice. So please, as you're inside this call, just ensure that your mics are muted. As soon as the speakers are here, we are going to begin shortly. I notice one of the speakers is already here with us. As we wait for the speakers, please, you can share the link you used to join so that others can join and benefit. Thank you.
So now, when are we going to start?
So good evening once again, everyone. I want to confirm if you can still hear me. We are starting now. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All
Yes,
right.
sir, we can hear you.
Uh, my name is Yasir Sanusi, and I serve as the Secretary General for the Nigerian Economic Student Association, and I will be your host for this session. So today, we'll be discussing on a very important topic, which is effective study technique and strategic approaches to answering economics exam questions. So this is a topic that I know all of you would love to hear, to learn from, and also it's a session that is designed to give you practical strategies on how to improve both in your exam and how to answer questions and in your general studies. So we'll have two of our top students who will be taking us in this topic, and we have Anne and we have Nafisah with us. So please ensure your mics are muted throughout the session. I'm sure this will be a very big opportunity for you to learn. And then at the end of this session, we'll be having a question and answer session. So without taking much of your time, you are welcome, our dear speakers. So now the floor is yours.
So like,
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, ma. Good evening. Okay. I am Ochanya Apeh, a 400 level student from the Department of Economics. Please, I just need two students to introduce themselves and tell me what's their expectations for this call. R.
Hello.
Just two, please.
Please, you guys can speak and tell her your expectations for this meeting.
I believe all of you here have one expectation or the other. So why is everyone quiet? Can you all hear me?
I think we were told to mute
Yes,
the
now we
we were
can
told
hear you.
we were
We can
told to
hear
mute,
you.
mute the mic. That's why.
Okay. Yasir, please can you help facilitate if there's
Yes,
anyone who wants
any
to
one of you
share?
who any one of you who wants to speak can kindly unmute his mic and speak. So that is an exception.
I think good day everyone. My name is Mohammed Midin. I'm the class rep of economics 20 level. I would love if you can please like strategize your question so that we can. I don't know. It's just a expectation. I don't know what you mean by the expectation. I don't know. Please, can you kindly rephrase the question again? Hello, please. Do you get me?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I mean, you should kindly rephrase the question. You said expectation
Okay,
as
like
how.
what do you hope to gain from this session? What do you hope to gain?
Okay. From my own perspective, I would love to, maybe the way I used to answer question. That they always say that we should read, we should read, we should read. So, but I think most of us don't know how to put in, like how to answer question in the exam. I would love to know how you, since you are a first class student, how me too I can, answer questions. It's not I'm not reading. For me to answer question, I can be the
Okay, that's
best.
really nice. I hope by the end of this session you get your question answered. Who else, please?
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Mark Sarah by name from 200 level economics. So my expectation is that like my class rep said, how to answer questions. And then there are times that my expectation to be able to know now. There are times that they'll say, okay, explain, briefly explain, and then discuss. So like these two things or these three things sometimes used to give me like difficulties. And again, sometimes they would say, okay, go straight to the point, but sometimes you find out that okay, the lecturer that's not what he actually wants. So my expectation is this evening is that let me be able to know and then distinguish between these um things. Thank you.
Okay, that's very nice. Thank you for the honesty. So before I begin, I want to say something really important. Please do not expect a sudden transformation after this call. Everything depends on you ultimately. I can share everything I know, but if you leave here and go back with the same habit, the same studying routine, I bet you nothing will change. So there's nothing special about what I'm going to share tonight. It's just pick up things that are relevant and things you can apply since the exams are fast approaching. So I'll share a bit of my story, just a little. In 100 level, I was a very diligent student. If you come to Kill Library, you always see me from morning till night, and I will not even leave there till I get that headache. You know that headache where it feels like you're about to slump. I will know that, yes, I've read you and I can go back to my hostel. So that was my method. Like, I needed to be productive day till night. So it was not just during exam, but it was like a routine for me. But then in 200 level, I realized that I don't really need to be doing all this. And I achieved the perfect grade first and second semester. And I genuinely did not even read nearly as much as I did in 100 level. But I was more intentional. I was able to know, oh, what works for me? What are the things I need to do better? So the difference is not even about the number of hours I put into reading, but how effective I was able to study and how I was able to do things that are actually relevant and made sense at that point. So the first part of this session, sorry, I'll share my slides now. Just hold on. Sorry, please hold on. My co-speaker is going to share my slide now. Apologies for the delay. Okay, so while she's working on that, I'll just maybe start. So the part one of this session is just basically to discuss effective study techniques, and most of these methods I'm going to be discussing are not things you can apply immediately or long term, and maybe the ones you can also apply immediately. The first one is don't wait for exam season. You have to start your reading when the semester begins. I know as funny as it sounds, it actually works. So reading when exams are around the corner is overwhelming. Trust me, I've been there. And when you leave topics to pile up, what happens is that you're no longer learning. You're just trying to put everything in your head, survive, write that exam, and just be done with it. And that's not even studying. You're going to be panicking. So the smarter approach is that whenever a topic seems really complex, you have to make sure that as soon as that topic is taught, you meet people who actually understand that topic. There is even YouTube. Go back to that topic and ensure that you understand that topic fully before you even go for the next class. And for the 300 level students, I'll be honest with you. If you haven't started reading Professor Bello's portion of 303, right? Macro, since the semester began, I hate to say this, but you're in deep soup. So the material is not something you can speed read in a week. You have to take your time seriously to make sure that you understand everything he taught and you're not just trying to cram it in a rush. So first one is ensure that you do not wait for exam season. So the next one, can everyone see the slide now?
Yes, we can see the slide.
Okay. No. Yeah, immediately. So the first I want to talk on is association. More than you know, your cycle actually matters. There's a reason why they say you are the average of the people around you. If everyone in your circle is unbothered about their grades, it becomes very easy for you to normalize underperformance or even studying when the exam is closed, right? But when you're around people that are actually serious and trying to raise the standard, you know that you're actually going to do better. So make sure you seek out people who are doing better than you and do it early before exam season is around the corner. You build those relationships, ask questions, learn how they think, and even try to, follow their pattern or emulate their pattern. You don't have to be in isolation or trying to figure out everything on your own. You can even meet your senior colleague, but make sure you meet them very early and not when things are already getting overwhelming. So the next point I would like to highlight is consistently. More than you know, instead of piling everything up till the time for exam, you can just spread it out. Sorry, please. You can just spread it out and make sure that in your daily routine, you incorporate maybe 2 hours or 3 hours daily to ensure that you go through everything and it makes things easier for you. The next step I would like to highlight is retrieval. So there's this method I usually do when I'm reading. When I read and I understand what I'm reading and I'm trying to access myself. I go through past questions. I look out for questions in that particular topic I've been reading, and I try to see if I'm able to answer the questions with my book closed and carefully access my understanding on that topic. So the next step is spacing. What do I mean by spacing? You don't have to cram everything in, right? You can space it. I know in our department we have different lecturers taking one particular course. If you know this person's part is really, really complex and complicated, you can save it for when you are in a better headspace. But you can just make sure that, oh, I'm going to focus on Professor Bello's part. I'm going to focus on Professor Taufik's part this period, and ensure that you actually learn. You don't have to join everything and just try to put everything in your head. It becomes really overwhelming. The next step is pattern recognition. This, I can attest to you that I've been through this severally. In 100 level, I was just reading from the course outline, trying to read what they gave me in class. Unfortunately, most of the lecturers don't even have that time to be changing past questions. They particularly bring out questions that they've set in the previous years. So you make sure you go through the past questions. What are those questions um, that are repeated over the years? You try to see if you're able to answer that question or if you have good understanding of that topic. The next I would like to talk about is depth. And I'll say this: if you know the type of grade you are, aiming for, if you're aiming for an A, I bet you do not have to read only what is given to you in class. You have to go through other materials. They are like reference or recommended texts or materials to read in your course outline. You can go through them. Most of the recommended textbooks are what our lecturers are using, and I feel like most students ignore them completely, but it has really been helpful to me since 100 level. So make sure that you're able to read it for deeper context, and it gives you the kind of understanding that when you're writing your exam, the lecturer is able to say that, yes, this student really understood what I did in class. So your class notes are just a starting point. You need to actually think it deep down and be able to carefully understand everything that is being taught. Because I tell you, they know the difference between a student who just read handouts and a student who actually studied and know what they are doing. So the next one is structure. Know your peak hours and protect them. If you're a morning person, you are able to create time during the early hours of the day and make sure you study effectively. If you're a night person or a midnight person, create time for yourself and ensure that you stick with it. You don't actually have to do what other people are doing or what your other friends are doing. So just make sure you stick to what works for you and be consistent and disciplined enough to make sure that you are following that consistently. So the next and the last one is intentionality. Read with a grade in mind. Sometimes I know most people just be like, "Ah, I just want to pass this course." But if you know what you are looking for, you read with that intention in your mind. You know that you're able to prepare adequately, and your tests, because I feel like tests makes not most part of it, but when you have like a good or perfect score for your text, you know that you're able to just put in the best for exam and just beat up the 70% grade. So you have to be intentional about the grade that you want and prepare adequately. Next slide, please. Now, these are the common mistakes to avoid in exam hall. So the first one is late arrival. Okay. Whenever you go late for an exam, you're actually tensed. You're not able to calm down and carefully think. You just be panicking for no reason. I've been in that same situation. I remember my 301. It was not as if I did not know the question, but I was just late for that exam and I began to panic. I had to run down to that exam hall and I was panicking. So when you carry that panic into the exam hall, your heart is racing and your thoughts are just scattered. Your brain is not in the right state to perform. So make sure you arrive early, settle in, look around, breathe in, just calm yourself down and even pray. Release every tension before the paper is even placed in front of you, and I promise you'll be able to articulate your thoughts properly and put it down into writing. The second is to avoid skipping instructions. This is very, very important. So make sure that you pay attention to an instruction. There are sometimes they'll ask you to answer one from each section. You must really pay attention to that. I have a friend who told me that he didn't really read the questions and he just answered like the ones he knew randomly, and it affected him badly. Someone who has never gotten a bad grade before came, I think he had a D or something. So make sure you pay good attention to the instruction given. The second is structure. So make sure that you organize your thoughts carefully, the introduction, the main body, and the conclusion, so that it is easier for the examiner to access. I know most times they don't even read everything, but first impression matters. When they pick up your script and they see that, oh, this person articulated their thoughts in such beautiful manner, I'm sure they want to award you your script. I mean, they don't have time to go through everything you'll be writing. So just ensure that you have proper structure for all your questions. Another is to avoid over-explaining. Now, when you over-explain, you tend to deviate from the actual question you are being asked. Make sure you stick to what is being asked and don't over-explain, right? The next one is a negative mindset. Before you even enter the course, you're like, it's gamma, what will I write? What is this? Calm down. Do not allow that fear. Do not allow that negative mindset kill your performance before you even start. Make sure you go in there with a positive mindset and you're able to calm down and just process your thought and write something. Last but not the least, is last minute cramming. So when you're trying to flood your brain with everything that has been taught for like 3 months, I mean, it's so overwhelming. So make sure that you do not do last minute cramming, please. And the least is say no to TDB, please. If at all you are going to do that, make sure you have proper rest before the exam so that your brain is not hazy and you're able to think carefully. Also, make sure you eat healthily before an exam. Next slide. So this is my favorite quote, and as you can see clearly, know thyself and to that knowledge be true. You know the kind of person you are. You know if you're a morning person, you're an afternoon person, you're a night person. Stick with that. You know the number of hours you can read. You know what you're able to assimilate. Stick to that and make sure that you don't follow someone else's pattern. What works for another person might not work for you, right? So make sure you stick to what works best for you. Next slide. Okay, so to answering examination question, the first step is to know your examiner. Before you even think about how to answer a question, you need to understand who is marking your script. And this is the strategy I think I use. Most lecturers will say it in class. Oh, I don't like lengthy. Please go straight to the point. I just want you to be very brief about it. Other lecturers will say, I want lengthy. I want detailed explanations. Most of them say it in class. But if you're not able to hear them talk about what they want, you can meet your senior colleagues and ask them, oh, what's this lecturer's pattern? What do they actually want, right? So you do not go and misinterpret what they actually need. You give the lecturer who wants brief answers, and the lecturer who wants lengthy answers, right? So you just go straight to the point. And if you want to write a page long for a lecturer that prefers brevity, obviously you're just going to lose marks. So just know your lecturer style and stick to that. Number 2 is hello. Okay. So number 2 is to decode before you write. I do this personally when I'm overwhelmed and I've gotten my question script, or I'm still trying to look at the questions and see which one I'm able to answer perfectly. I can just go to the back of the script with my pencil and write out main points that I do not want to forget. So make sure you actually structure your answers that well. Like decide on which one is your best fit for answering the questions and write it behind. Then you can actually prioritize which one you know best and answer your questions. Now, structure every answer. You first of all define, explain, illustrate, apply, then summarize. There are most questions that requires graph or maybe real life examples, but not all. So you make sure you put all these things into consideration when you're answering questions. So, for example, if they are asking about market structure, perfect competition, and all of that. You don't just define it and stop there. You start with a clear and concise definition. Then you give like an overview, what it involves and everything. Then if there's a diagram, you make sure you draw it, a well-labeled diagram, and just to show that you understand what you are doing. So if possible, also you just drop real life examples. Then after that, you can just wrap up all your points with like a brief summary. The next one is visual advantage. Oh, I've already said that diagrams to support, they will actually fetch more marks. Another is to master your time. So I don't think in our question script they give like the kind of marks that will be awarded for that question. I don't think it's all, but make sure you actually prioritize questions that are more complicated. So the time is never enough in an exam hall. You may just be writing and then you just hear that time is up. So you need to be strategic about the order in which you answer your questions. You start with the questions that requires more thoughts, the one that you know will fetch you more mark, the one that requires more energy. So while your brain is still fresh and sharp when you enter into the hall, you start with those ones and leave the shorter and the easier questions for later. If you start with the easier ones, you may run out of time or you not even get time to write out the ones you actually know. So make sure you master your time and manage it efficiently. The last one is never leave blanks. You may not know an answer, and we are always told to avoid examination malpractice. So what to do in this situation is just write anything you can remember. Right? They'll pity you and they'll know that yes, you actually read. So don't leave any space blank. Just try to fill it up with something. Next slide. Okay, I think that's all. If there are any questions, I'll be available. But right now, I'll hand it over to the moderator to continue from here. Thank you so much for listening.
So, and this was a very beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. I've personally gained a lot of value from this, and I'm sure everyone did. So, I don't know if you have any personal experience or your motivation for, being one of the top students. I think he has the highest CGPA in the department at the moment. So, do you have any type of motivation or personal story or something that you wish to share with all the audience?
Okay, Yasir, thank you so much for the question. I was talking to Nafisah about this earlier, and I was telling her that I didn't really have a motivation. I just came, I was like, I can just aim for 4 points because my dad is an alumni of ABU, and he was like, I know your department, economics department, they are very tough. They don't give first class, but a 4 points is okay. It's actually give you like the kind of advantage you need in the job market. And I was like, no problem, let me go and try my luck. Then when I saw my results in first semester and I saw that I actually got a first class, I was like, this is achievable. So why not? Let's work towards this. So it was not really, I didn't come into this school with, I'm going to work for 5 points or this. I was just, reading and, what is worth doing. How do you say it again? Is what do you well. So yeah, I think that's just it.
So, thank you so much. I'm really inspired by what you just said. So, in absence of having anything more to add to this, I would love to call on to our second speaker. She's also a first class student in the department. Of course, like one of the leading students in the department. So she can continue where Ant stopped. Please, Nafisah, if you're available, you can start presenting. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Yasir. Good evening, everybody. As Yasir has already said, my name is Nafisah Okunade. I am currently a 400 level student of economics department. And well, to be honest, after listening to Anne's presentation, there is not much I can see that is very different from what she has said. It almost feels like we sat down to discuss about this, but it was really independent, and that says a lot about some things that are just sure ways to achieve academic success. Just a second, let me share my slides. Okay. All right, please can you confirm if you can see my screen? Okay. All right. So just an introduction. Um, so to be honest, I feel like the very first thing that I would say defined my academic journey and will I say every action I've taken since then has been mindset. I came into ABU knowing that I wanted a first class. That was the goal, that was the objective. I did not want to hear any other thing, first class or nothing. That was it for me. And I feel like that played a very huge role in shaping my actions, my decisions, and my priorities as a student. So that leads me to my first point, which is mindset is everything. So, to be honest, it does not start in the exam hall. It starts the moment you get admission. It starts the moment you attend your first lecture. Your level of commitment, your level of dedication, your goals in mind, while taking into consideration obviously things that could impede you from achieving those goals, will greatly shape whatever decision you're making. I personally run a baking business right from my 100 level. I used to go home back and forth. I'm juggling orders, I'm attending classes, and at the same time, I'm just doing everything at once. But I always knew that when it comes to business, I could keep it aside because my academics were always my priority. So that's the first thing I would say. Your mindset shapes everything beyond just being in the exam hall and answering the questions. Where you want to be, who you want to be, your academic standing, it depends on how you see yourself and how you see the position that you want to be in the future. So now the question is, okay, you have a goal in mind. How do you move from your goal to your results? Like I mentioned earlier, it starts from your very first lecture. It does not start in the exam hall. As busy as I was, I remember no matter what it was, no matter how many orders I had, it was always that I would never be not be in class. I will sleep in class. I will lose attention, but I will always be in class because I knew that classes were important and it shapes greatly how you perceive the course and how you study for the course as well. So I used to. Sorry for the interruption. Okay, so for me, I used to attend classes a lot, so I comprehended better when I was in front of the lecturer. I understood what they were saying. But in my 100 level days, I don't think I used to speak in class, and that was one of the biggest mistakes I would make. I would always be at the back of the class. I wouldn't really speak or ask questions when I had questions because of shyness or will I say the desire to not be seen. And then when that changed in 200 level, when we started having our departmental courses, I think that propelled me beyond what I would have ever imagined. Like I would never ask a question, even if I had a question. But in 200 level class, you would see me, sir, I don't understand this. Sir, I don't understand that. There is no shame in asking questions. You paid school fees. You are here for a reason. And if you're here for a reason, you do what you need to do to get where you need to get to. So it's all about identifying the gaps in your knowledge and finding a way to close that gap. If you know that you are weak in a particular course, before it's 2 weeks to exam, you've already looked for that guru in your class that is always talking to the lecturer to explain these things to you, or meet a senior that you know could help you out to dissect it. Not when exams are really close by and you'll be like, oh my god, who is going to teach me this, who's going to teach me that? You're not even going to gain any real knowledge because as soon as that exam is done, you're forgetting about it and you're moving on. And the point of being in the university, as much as we don't like to hear it, is to learn and to produce individuals that are actually exceptional in society. But if you can't do that, if you're just doing it just to pass, then I'm sorry, but your priorities are wrong in the first place. So yeah, moving on. I think this is the core of my presentation. Don't hold back. When you are in the exam hall, when you are with your question paper, I know sometimes we feel like, oh, let's not talk too much, so the lecturer will not think maybe you are saying things that are off point or this or that. But don't hold back. You've read, you've done your reading, as Anne mentioned, refer to textbooks, don't limit yourself to your class notes. You've done the reading, you've done the analysis you need to do. Now it is time for you to show your lecturer that yes, I've read, yes, I understand. Not just that I know it, but I understand. And how do you do that? You use, as economic students particularly, because I know I'm talking to an audience of economic students, the most important thing I would say is your graphs, because you might know, let's say, theory of demand, and you explain what demand is, you explain what quantity demanded is. But the moment you add in a graph and you explain your graph in your exam question paper, you've already added like one whole page to just one answer. So my basic format for this, though I did not really want to go into the technicalities of answering questions yet, but let me just say this. My basic approach is, first you give an introduction. The way your lecturers, when they're giving notes or dictating notes, give an introduction to the topic before they go into the details of the topic. You as a student should also do that. When you're answering your question, let's just say talk about demand. You explain what demand is, probably explain the distinction between demand and quantity demand, because it's something that is in your notes. And then you now go ahead, let's say they asked generally about theory of demand. So after you've explained what the concept is, then you now be like, okay, it can be illustrated below. Draw the demand curve, whatever movements you want to show, indicate them in the graph. Make sure you have your axis intact. And then you now go under, explain everything in the graph. Like, you know how the demand curve moves from D1 to D2, income or price rather moves from P1 to P2. You explain all of that, and you just see that it will add a lot of bulk and volume to your work. And it's not irrelevant because it's still in line with what you want to answer. So we'll get into the details of that later, but the next point I would like to raise is to know yourself. I recall Anne mentioned the quotes, know thyself and stay true to yourself. I can't really quote it directly, but it's something that is the most important thing, really, because as a student, each and every one of us are different. What works for Anne doesn't work for me. What works for you may not work for someone else. So it's important to always understand yourself, know your limits, know when you thrive, know what you need to do to achieve your goals. If you need to read 2 hours to cover a course, read 2 hours. If you need to do 3 weeks ahead, do 3 weeks ahead. Don't say, oh, because this person can do it, me too, I can do it. If you know your capabilities, you're going to be able to project yourself in a way that you achieve those goals that you want to achieve, even though you are far from others. Like, for instance, to be very honest, when it comes to brilliance, I won't really say I am exceptional, because I know that, okay, it's not like I just go to class, grab it, and then I'm just pouring it for the lecturer. I know that I have to go through that thing once, twice, maybe 10 times before I know that, okay, yes, I understand this thing. And then there are some people that will just go to class, read the notes once, and then they will give the same value as that I'm giving. But the difference between me and that person is the fact that I know that I can't do that. So I do the work that I need to do to match up to that person. So, okay, so you need to be strategic with your strengths as well. Like, for instance, one thing I learned very late in academics is the fact that I'm a daytime reader. So for most of 100 level and 200 level, I used to try to, after classes, I'll go read at night in FSLC, I think, yes. And to be honest, it was not working because 80% of the time I'm actually sleeping. And then I come back to the hostel so tired, sleep for 5 hours, go to class the next morning. That was not a life. And then when I now realize that, oh, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., I'm most effective, I'm most active, I just stopped trying to fit into the narrative of someone who looks serious and actually decided to work with what works for me. And to be honest, it's like a whole process of rediscovering yourself. I feel like as your academic journey progresses, you will never stop rediscovering yourself. Up till today, I am still rediscovering what works best for me. And to be honest, there's no fixated way to do it. If you realize that one particular way is not working, feel free to try other things. For even people that, I know there are people that do TDB, I would not advise personally, but if it's what works for you, if you know that that's what actually works for you, then do it. But don't do it last minute. Don't do it night before exams. It's not going to work out. You're going to end up confused and you're going to regret your decisions most of the time. Okay, so that leads me to my next point, which is start early. So as I mentioned multiple times, your preparation does not start 1 week to exam or when exam timetable is out. Your preparation starts the moment the semester begins. So, as Anne mentioned earlier, for technical courses, you should try to always go through the notes regularly, try to understand, because, like for instance, I think 303, or rather 304, I think 304 was the most challenging course we've faced in this school so far, because it was from a lecturer who demanded a lot, Dr. Usman Bello, as we all know him as. I would rather not say, but yes. For his course, I and Anne, because she was a huge support to me last semester. We actually started reading for his course much earlier than a week, 2 weeks to exam. We started reading from his course the moment he started coming to class. When we realized that, oh, this is not maybe Dr. Adamu, that you just draw one or two graphs and explain and you move on. We realized that this is a very demanding lecturer that demanded nothing but the best. And to be able to achieve that, we needed to go the extra mile. We needed to understand what he was teaching beyond just understanding it to the point of explaining, but to actually understand the core of it. And up to today, I would still say that it has greatly impacted how I even view macroeconomics. I feel like macroeconomics is my favorite course because it is practical, and more particularly because Dr. Bello opened our minds to understand that it's not just about passing, it's about understanding the macro dynamics. But let's not get into that. Anyway, so another thing is to stay consistent with your reading. For me, I tend to, even though I'm very busy with academics, with extracurriculars as well, I try to stay consistent with my studies. I always make sure that no matter what, at any point in time, I know what's going on in every course. So that when it comes to reading for exams, I already know the gap I need to close, so I can do that early. So I'm sorry, my presentation is mostly tailored towards the things you need to do way ahead of exams, but it's something that you can carry on to the next semester and implement as you go on. But the reality, the truth is just that there's no miracle. Everything starts from early on. You need, if you want a good grade, you need to start early, and there is no other way aside from that. I know there are some people that would scatter a course in one night and think, okay, yeah, I've done it. But then check the gap between those people and people that started early, people that attended classes, people that asked questions, the people that prepared themselves. And you see that there's always a gap, even though sometimes they get lucky. But the ones that stay consistently on top are the people that consistently study and do what they need to do when they need to do it. So okay, so the next point is improve with feedback. So I think one thing that was very instrumental for me academically and especially with exams is having a mentor. I had a mentor who was not really from the department but also studied economics, and I remember the bulk of our sessions, aside from the tutorials themselves, the bulk of our sessions involved how to approach questions, because you may know it, you may have studied, you may have done the work, but you don't approach questions the right way. I personally know a lot of my colleagues that I knew even knew better than me in a lot of courses, but because they were not able to show the lecturer on paper that they knew that this is what the topic is about, they were not able to get the grade that they wanted. So it does not speak to their level of intelligence, it does not speak to their capabilities, but just their approach to questions. And that is the core of everything that you need to do. So at the end, you may do the work, the groundwork that needs to be done, but then when it comes to execution, you fail because not because you don't know it, but because you're not showing the lecturer that you know it. So one very cool life hack I use is ChatGPT. So my roommates are always teasing me that, oh, I'm not talking to a friend, I'm not talking to anybody, I'm talking to ChatGPT. What am I telling ChatGPT? Okay, I'm talking about interest rate, I'm talking about demand, I'm talking about whatever we're doing in class, I'm asking ChatGPT about it. So let's say, for instance, we've done Econ 303 and we're doing, okay, the open economy. I could just throw a past question to ChatGPT, ask it, how do I approach this question best? And then it gives me an outline. I use that outline to kind of answer that question on my own based on the reading that I've done. And then I'll basically feed that answer back to ChatGPT, ask it for the lapses in my let's say, train of logic. I'll ask it to show me how to better approach the question, what to include, what do you think my lecturer would like. Sometimes I even go as far as describing the lecturer. I'll be like, oh, Professor Dr. Bello is this type of lecturer. He likes graphs. He likes this explanation. He comes from this route. He's a very critical thinker. And then it gives the AI context to understand how best to approach questions. So to be honest, don't use AI to read, but you use AI to test your understanding. Like for instance, for 300 level students, I'm sure you guys can relate to this. When it comes to macroeconomics, there's a lot of, this thing cause that thing cause this, and then you can get, let's say, jumbled up in your mind sometimes. So sometimes the best way to approach is just to enter ChatGPT, ask it what happened first, what caused this. Those things help, and this is something that you can do, let's say, very close to exams when you are preparing with your past questions. And let's see, that moves me back to my next point. Before you start writing. So now let me just kind of put a bit of context for you. You've prepared, you've read, yeah. You just entered the exam hall. Let's say you are writing your exam in LT1. You found a seat, a very comfortable seat. They just give you your examination paper, and now it is time to start. The entire semester, from beginning to end, relies on this particular moment you are about to start your exams. Now, before you start writing, before you do anything, take a very deep breath. Make sure that you are calm,
Yeah, like I was in my life.
and then you now start. For me, I usually just mutter a small prayer. For those who are religious, I would highly advise prayer is so important. So pray before you start. And then the first thing that you should do is make sure you fill in your details, obviously. Make sure you fill in your reg number, all the necessary details. Before you might think, oh, I just want to start, let everything all fly out of my head. But fill in your details first. And then the moment I fill in my details, I go to the very end of my question paper, and then I now start looking at my questions. So right before the exam, I probably went through past questions. I know the kind of questions I expect to see and the ones I'm likely to attempt first. So for the things that I know that could easily fly out of my head, I just start attempting them. You just like a tiny little bit of writing. Question 1A, this, things that I know that I could forget. Maybe the main bullet points of, let's say, a particular topic. And then you do that for all the questions that you think you can answer. And then probably the ones that you think you might be able to answer, but you're not sure of. Just write the things that you know that can fly out of your
We
head.
are not
Then
hearing. What is happening with the this thing?
can you hear me? Please
We
confirm
can
if you can.
hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. You can proceed.
Okay. All right. So as I was saying, you go to the very end of your exam question paper, answer basically all the questions. The main bullet points. Let's say, for instance, you're dealing with theory of demand, factors that determine demand. Income. Please remind me. Your taste and preference, weather, all those things that you know that okay, it's very likely that if I get things, I can forget these things. You write them down. If you need to draw a graph, draw it. All those things, it doesn't even need to be formal. Just like things that the moment you see it, you remember what you've read already. So that when you get tense, because at some point in the example, you're going to be tense. So at some point, you just go back to it, refer back, and then it helps to kind of guide the logical flow of your answers. So that way you're able to actually structure your answer such that it's in line with logic. Because sometimes you can just start answering a question, you realize that you're going off point completely. And that's where I think the point of over explaining comes in. So when you have a structure already, instead of just approaching the question that, oh, I want to answer, you already know that okay, for instance, they talked about they asked me a question about demand. Sorry, I'm using demand so much, but they ask a question about demand, you know that okay, you have to define demand, define the factors or highlight the factors that determine quantity demanded or whatever, and then maybe you have to draw a graph. All those things will help the sequential flow of your answers and will make the lecturer understand that you actually have a holistic understanding of the particular topic. So yeah, as I mentioned, scan all questions, and then this is a very important thing. Start with your strongest question. And this is important because it basically helps the lecturer to, will I say, it gives you a free pass. When a lecturer opens a question paper, or rather an answer booklet, and they see that, okay, this first question, this guy is already blowing our brains, he's saying things that are on point, he's doing well, the rest of the answer booklet is going to be a bit easier. The moment he sees that, okay, you started strong, he's going to be way more lenient on you than if you started really badly, or if you started with a 2-line answer or a 3-line answer. I've seen this because I've actually seen, maybe not our lecturers, but I've seen teachers marking scripts. And then the moment they see that, okay, this student is doing well in their first question, they are way more lenient, they are way more willing to give marks than if the student started badly. So you must not say, oh, I want to answer question 1, then question 3, then question 5. If question 3 is your strongest point, start with question 3. But always make sure that you outline that in the first page of your answer booklet so that lecturers don't get confused. And make sure that whenever you're answering your questions, you boldly outline which question you're answering. Follow all instructions that are in the answer booklet. Very important. Because there are people that would write something good, but just because they did not follow instructions, you find that they failed the course or they did worse than they were supposed to do. Then the next thing is managing your time effectively. So one thing personally I've experienced is the fact that if you start with your strongest question, you are very likely to spend a lot of time on that question. And that's something you should avoid. Not because it's bad, but because you don't have enough time to tackle the tougher or more demanding questions. So what you should do is, okay, you know that, okay, question 1, you need maybe 45 minutes to answer it. Maybe just time yourself for like 30 or 35 minutes. Once that time has elapsed, possibly even start outlining the important points. Like, let's say, for instance, the question has to do with consumer behavior. And then maybe you have to outline the main bullet points and then you now explain later, yeah? So you could just do that, outline the main bullet points, know that you have something there that the lecturer can give you mark on. Give enough space. Don't be afraid to say, oh, I'm managing my booklet, I'm trying to collect extra sheets. Give enough space. And then move to the next question so that you don't end up concentrating all your time and energy on 20 marks. Because each question, for economic students, I believe we usually have 3 questions to answer, and each question has 20 marks, making 60 marks. So just remember that at the end of everything is 20 marks. So you should allocate time based on the marks that you're going to gain. So if you know that, okay, this is going to take way too much of your time, try and start another question, but make sure you give enough space. And in a case where you even don't give enough space and you find that you have more to say, I've had a situation where, okay, though it was a very lenient lecture I did that for, I forgot to answer a particular section of a question. And then I realized when I was going through my work, and then I went back towards the end of my examination answer booklet, and I went to clearly outline that, okay, this is what happened though. In the question itself, that the pages that answered the question itself, the main question, I outlined that, oh, refer to this page for this particular answer. So it's something that you can do. Your lecturers are not robots, they will understand. And for most of them, I believe that they would actually go ahead and take the time to refer back. But this is something you should definitely avoid because it complicates matters. But I'm just saying, in case of situations like that, know that that's an option. So so the whole point of not holding back is writing with, okay, I don't think, okay, I've spoken about not holding back here. I'm here, okay. Understand patterns. So aside from what I've spoken about earlier, understanding patterns basically has to do with your past questions. I would say that past questions have been like a very huge lifesaver for me academically, right from 100 level. Not because I would jack past questions and expect that this is what I'll see in the exam hall, but because it allowed me to prepare myself for the questions and know that I actually understand what I've read. So for instance, now you have I'm sure Yasir and NESA in general usually compile past questions for you all. So when exam time is coming close, look at past questions. Take the time to answer them as if you're in the exam hall. Time yourself. Know, understand each lecturer. You should be able to be like, oh, this is Dr. Adamu's part, this is Gamma's part, this is Dr. Shimau's part. Know each part and know which lecturer took each part so that you can understand how they set their questions, what is expected of you, and how to deliver on those expectations. So moving on, that leads me to my next point, knowing your lecturers. So there was one thing that stuck with me during Dr. Bello's class last year. I refer to him a lot because it was actually my toughest course personally. He mentioned how he wanted his questions to be answered. He mentioned the particular pathway that he wanted us to follow. And this is why it's important to attend class. There are some contexts that you don't get if you don't attend class. So for now, for that kind of lecturer now, I already started taking note of how he wanted to answer, how he wanted the students to answer questions, the approach he wanted us to follow. And that way I was able to deliver that type of content to him during the exam. So basically, if I'm writing in my exam question paper, I'm writing as if I'm talking directly to the lecturer. I'm writing as if it is Dr. Bello that is in front of me and he's seeing me right now. That way, because at the end it's going to be him. So you have to be able to approach questions the way he would be impressed. So for some particular lecturers like Dr. Shimao, for instance, is very particular on spellings. So if you're not a good speller, probably avoid her part. For Dr. Hamisu, he likes when students explain a lot. For Dr. Popoala, he likes when you follow his steps and that he took in class. Just know the lecturers and know what each lecturer demands of you as a student. That way you'll be able to answer questions properly. So that leads me to my next point of structuring your answers. Okay, so um this is like when it comes to your actual approach to questions. So I mentioned earlier that when you are in your exam in the exam hall, you've already done a brief outline of all the questions you want to answer, and then now it comes to actually writing, and that's like the scary part. So I think the core thing is write like you're writing a textbook kind of. Start with a very nice introduction, introduce the topic, define it probably the way the lecturer even defined it, then add your own salt and maggi. Make sure that it looks really good from the definition of the concept itself. And then, for instance, now, I know in 100 level we did demand versus quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is only affected by price, and then demand is affected by things like taste and fashion, weather, income, location, and things like that. So now, if the question requires differentiates these things, clearly differentiates them, and know that okay, this is different from this. But then if the question does not demand such, don't go the extra mile, don't over explain, don't do too much. Always make sure that you are in line with what is required of you from the question. That's why it's always important to read the question clearly and understand what is demanded of you from that question. So for economic students, to be honest, if there is any topic that has a graph, which is basically almost all topics, always draw your diagrams. There is no excuse whatsoever for a topic to have a diagram and you're not drawing that diagram when the question requires that of you. Like that is the core of what we're doing. As economists, we must explain with graphs. So one thing that I think is it's even an added advantage in a way because it allows you to explain better the concept. So you've explained the concept that is demanded by the question, and then now it's time to draw a graph. So you could explain the concept, explain what happens in the graph in a very general sense, and then you have like, okay, this is explained in the figure below. Draw the graph, make sure you have a ruler, draw very straight, beautiful lines, make sure that it looks very nice and appealing, and then go ahead to explain that graph. Like for instance, now let's just say we're dealing with a shift in demand. I'm sure we're all familiar with that, even the 100 level students. Okay, for instance, now we're dealing with a shift in demand. You could explain that, okay, due to a change in income, demand shifted from D1 to D2. This caused price to increase from P1 to P2, and maybe oh, I wish I could have a graph in front of me right now, but essentially explain what happens in the graph step by step, showing what caused what is the effect of what, while will I say highlighting the movements. Like let's say it moved from Y1 to Y2. Make sure you indicate that okay, income moved or output moved from Y1 to Y2. I don't know if we're following, but that's basically a very important point. And okay, aside from that, you should always conclude clearly. So after you've drawn your graph, you've explained your graph, try and summarize what you've done without necessarily repeating yourself. So just be like, okay, in summary, um, this caused that. And my apologies for being very vague. I wish I had a particular topic we could all relate to so I could explain better. But essentially, the steps I'm highlighting now are: define the concepts, if necessary, differentiate the key terms, draw and explain your diagrams, and conclude clearly. Make sure that everything follows a very logical sequence. Make sure that it seems like what you would see in a textbook in terms of structure. So you might know what you are doing, but you might not be able to structure your answers clearly. And another point I would like to add in this is, don't feel like you are talking too much. If you are not over explaining, yeah, you could still go ahead to bulk up your explanations. If you have real world examples to use, if you have certain things that you saw in the notes that you think are relevant, or in your textbook that you think are relevant, add them in. Make sure that your work looks bulky. For you can just pass over. Sorry about the interruption. Sorry about the interruption. Okay, so what I was saying was, you need to you need to add my apologies for the delay. What I was basically saying is, don't be afraid to add bulk to what you are writing. Don't be afraid to show the lecturer that yes, you've read vastly about this particular topic. When you're answering questions, personally, as a rule of thumb, I always make sure that I use 3, 4, 5 pages, even if necessary, to answer one question. Make sure your handwriting is bold and clear, and make sure that you're pouring everything that you have. Always make sure that it's still in line with the topic at hand. Don't stray, don't deviate, still stay on the topic, but just make sure that you are giving the lecturer what you have and showing them that you actually know and you've read and you've prepared for this. Um, so the last point I have is really the power of past questions. First off, this is a disclaimer. I'm not telling you jack past questions before exam and you'll pass. No. The power of past questions lies in the fact that these courses that you're doing every single year are taken by relatively the same lecturers that have the same approach to teaching every year. So even if they don't set the same questions, you can, after reading a couple of past questions and seeing them, you could actually spot patterns. You could see that this particular lecturer usually asks this style of questions. You can see that this particular lecturer was technical. You can see that this particular lecturer asks from this particular topic. And then when you spot those patterns, you're actually able to answer questions better. And to be honest, if a week to exams or few days to exams, you cannot answer past questions such that you yourself will be impressed, you should be worried about your level of preparation. So I think time is going. So let me just try and wrap up. So one thing I practically do is to practice past questions like real exams. So I sit down, take a past question, answer it from top to bottom, or answer it maybe like 3 questions, as if I'm in the exam hall. And then as I mentioned earlier, I go back to my AI, go to ChatGPT, snap the answers that I gave, tell it to tell me my lapses, what I can do better, how I can explain this better, based on what maybe I've been discussing with it so far. So use AI, use it very well. It really helps, especially with your technical courses. Make sure you use AI, but not to give it the core value, rather just to help you or to guide you to outline what is actually important to you. So you, in this time, you time yourself, make sure that you are within the relevant time frame, focus on understanding the best way to approach each question, and do not depend on past questions without studying. So as for me, even though I know that past questions are so relevant, I always make sure that before I even start opening past questions, I've read my notes, I've done my relevant researches, I understand everything that's going on in each course. And then I refer back to past questions, not as a means of as a sure plug that, oh, this is what will come out, but as a means of testing my own knowledge and making sure that, yes, I actually know this. So past questions are so important. I would highly recommend that you don't take them for granted, but use them in the right way and in a way that is actually going to be beneficial for you. Don't depend on them. Never depend on past questions because they can use you to do future questions. And if you're actually prepared, that won't phase you at all. So my final takeaway is essentially just prepare yourself early, test yourself with past questions, but don't expect them. And in the exam hall, allow yourself to shine. And the last thing for me, I would say is pray. Pray hard because at the end, it's God. It is not your abilities. It is not your brilliance. It is God. Like hold God tight. Pray hard according to your respective faiths. Always make sure that you stay connected spiritually and do what you need to do to meet up to that expectation and to materialize your prayer points. So that would be my conclusion. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you picked maybe 1 or 2 cents from this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, Nafisah, for this beautiful presentation. We really appreciate your time and the knowledge you've shared with us. And to add, and Nafisah, they are not just regular students that just focus on studying. They also participate in other extracurricular activities, like Nafisah says she's a business owner. And also, apart from that, she's also the president of the Investment Society. So maybe along the line in your 200 level, in your final year, you might want to be part of the association if you're interested in being someone who wants to go into finance or investment or any related career. And also, Anne is also a very dedicated member of Enactors. And beyond that, I know she does a lot of things. So just set your priorities, and beyond your priorities, if you know you can involve yourself in extracurricular activities, join associations along the line, network with people, run for positions. If you're someone who is interested in that, you can do that. So don't just restrict yourself to academics. And I don't know, Nafisah, do you also have a personal story that you could share, just like Anne shared something with us?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I came into ABU knowing that I wanted the first class. But okay, during my first semester, I was actually able to achieve that. But then in my second semester, I fell way off and flat out of first class. And I was like, oh wow, this is where I am now. And then at that point, it was like a crossroads for me. It was either I get relaxed and kind of, will I say, normalize this for myself, or I push harder and get back into first class. So at that point, I made the conscious decision that, okay, this is what I want. How do I go about it? So I doubled up in my efforts. I started to prioritize more. I had a business, but so at some point, I had to keep it aside. I did what was necessary to get there. And to be honest, another thing that really, really helped me was the fact that I just had this mindset that if you've reached a certain milestone, you should never fall below it. So if I would rather not speak about the nitty-gritties of my results so far, but it has been on an upward trajectory aside from the fall I had in my 100 level second semester. So you should always aim to at least do better than your previous self. Don't compare yourself to your classmates. If somebody is writing 4.8 and you've been writing 4.1 and next semester you do a 4.3, be proud of yourself. You are doing great. Just make sure that you are always comparing yourself to your previous self and not to others around you. Everybody has their different capabilities. And yeah, this really, really helped me. I really hope to maintain that trajectory and continue to do better. And I really, really hope to see the same energy from our younger ones coming up. You guys are doing really great, and things like this are the things that shape your academic journey. So please keep up, have a mentor, always make sure that you're committed to doing better.
So in essence, if Anne can do it, then you can also do it. If Nafisah can do it, then you can also do it. All you need to do is to follow the strategies that they followed. And as you all know, there's no shortcuts. So I'll be asking a very simple question to Anne and Nafisah. Any one of you that would love to answer it can go ahead and answer it. And you can also answer it after the other have answered it. So let's say we have someone that haven't started studying, and as you know, exam is like in a few days' time. What advice would you have for that person? Because I know a lot of people here, minus me by the way, that haven't started studying, and they feel this webinar would be a life changer for them because it will practically expose them to some shortcuts like that. So, what advice would you have for that person?
Sorry, Yasir, come with the question, just like the beginning, whatever you said.
Yes. So basically, I was asking, what advice do you have for someone that haven't started studying, and this is just few days to exam?
To be honest, just start, start reading. And the thing is, I asked Nafisah the same question earlier. I told her that we're not coming to give any magical tips here. Please don't ask unrealistic questions. But then in
Thank
this short
you.
period of time, I think you can just reach out to people that are already like, ahead. That's if they are willing to give you their time. Because as for me, I'm very, very, stingy with my time this moment. But yeah, reach out to people that are better, have group discussions, and I'll not really advise TDB, but yeah, just maximize the time that you have left and come up with something.
Okay, I think I should add to that. Another thing is I would not advise, but for people that are short on time, like I mentioned earlier, your past questions will really guide your studies, especially in this critical period. So, for instance, you have a couple of lecturers taking a particular course and a couple of topics. So, if you know that okay, you cannot master each and every topic, just have three topics, or let's say three types of questions that you see in each past question. That you know that okay, if this type of question comes out, I can tackle it. And then for the rest, just try and make sure you have this at least some level of knowledge about it, but just have some strong points that you kind of depend on at this critical period. But generally, I would not advise.
So in essence, there is no shortcut. If you want to make it, you have to start early. If you haven't started early, then you still have chance. So we have another special person with us, and I want him probably should share some of his insights about, like, he could drop some advice for our students. Uh, Shoaib, if you're on the call, please, you can unmute and share your insight. And also, I can see you commented that you want to answer the question. So please go ahead. You are welcome if you are still on the call.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry, Yasir. I think you misinterpreted my message. I didn't say I want to answer the question. I said I need an answer to the question, right? Because I'm probably part of those that haven't actually started studying.
Should
So
I believe?
currently where I am, right, it's quite noisy. So I don't think I can add much. I think my colleagues have done well enough, and I also gained a lot from the insights they shared. Thank you very much, Nafisa, and I really do appreciate. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you so much. We really love the fact that you are present on this call. So I don't know, we still have enough time. So I think we would be giving the floor to anyone who has a question. Please just raise your hands, and then I'll be pointing out to you to answer the questions one after the other. If you still have something in your mind that hasn't been answered, please just indicate and you'll be allowed to speak. If you have any question, please raise your hands. So I can see Lifesaver raising his hand. Lifesaver, please unmute your mic and drop your question. And also, for those of you who can drop their question in the comment, you can drop it, please. Okay, I can see John Mark. Please, John Mark, take your hands down, unmute your mic, and answer the question and ask your question. Since Lifesaver is not I don't know if he's available. John Mark, you can go ahead, please. So as none of them are answering, I just saw a question in the chat box, and uh, it says that what should they do with the issue of forgetting? She said, what should we do with the issue of forgetting? So I don't know if you heard what I said, that what should they do with the issue of forgetting?
Okay, so I think for me, that is precisely why one of my points hammered on, before you even start attempting questions, go to the back of your answer booklet and outline all the things that you know you can forget if you get tense. And I understand that there are some people that actually have, or let's say, they just forget once they enter the exam hall and they get tense and everything. But don't start doing for someone to tell you something. Examination malpractice is not worth it. Let me just tell you. It's better to fail that course than to end up in disciplinary committee's office. So for people like that, I think the important thing is just try to repeatedly test yourself. Like the best way to not forget something is if you tested yourself on it, you forgot it, you now remembered it after you've failed that test and you'll be like, oh, next time I'm not going to forget it. And then just I think the most important thing is just to stay calm. It's just an exam. Like it's not the end of the world. So just stay calm at every single point. Make sure that you're not tense, make sure that you're not let's say agitated. And that's why it helps to actually come to the exam hall a bit earlier. So you just make sure that you're entering the exam hall with a calm mind. And if you know that you can still forget, as soon as you get your answer booklet, start writing things at the back of it. That's just my own advice.
Thank you so much. And do you have anything to add to what she said?
Okay, Nafisa's point resonates deeply with me, so I don't think I need to add anything to her question. But I can see another question on the chat box. How do I improve my concentration? So personally what I do is that I can't read for 3 hours and be fully concentrated in that 3 hours. First off, if I am not using ChatGPT to read, I'm just maybe reading from my laptop or reading my notes, I'm going to keep my phone aside. In fact, I'm going to give it to someone and say, do not give me this phone until this time to improve my concentration. Next is I always take breaks. I can't read, like your brain is going to be tired. So I take breaks, 30 minutes, I'll do something else. 30 minutes, I'll do something else just to take my mind off it. But then I'll ensure that, if I'm reading for 2 hours, I actually read for 2 hours. If I'm reading for 3 hours, I actually read for that 3 hours. And so far, it has actually helped improve my concentration.
Thank you so much. So to add to what they said, based on forgetting and concentration, there's something called active recall that you could basically use to help you recall information. So what you do is whenever you study, you should close your book and then try to recall whatever you've read. Whatever you can write down is what you can remember in your own words. And whatever you cannot remember, you go back to your textbook, go back to your notes, read it again, and try to see if you can write it down. What it does to you, it makes you not to think what you've read is inside your head, but it forces you to know what's already inside your head. So basically, this technique called active recall, it helps you to remember. And coming to concentration, your phone is a very big factor of concentration. So if you cannot study without getting distracted with your phone, the advice I would give to you is you should keep your phone and just go with your note, unless if you need to use ChatGPT, as she said, or your textbook is inside your phone. But always try to terminate distraction. You can't fight with distractions like that. So you just have to block the door to distraction. And there's another question here that says, our lecturer, Dr. Hamis, once says, when we are about to answer a question, we have to conceptualize and contextualize. I can relate to that. So please explain clearly.
Okay. Conceptualize is basically for you to show that you truly understand the concept at its core. You don't just define the term and move on, you break it down. For instance, I remember when he gave us an explanation of markets, there were still key terms in that definition. So you expect you to bring out those key terms and define it independently. Do you understand? For instance, maybe there's situation. You bring out situation, define it. Maybe there's equilibrium, bring out equilibrium from that definition and define it independently. Those are the things he wants to see. Do you understand? You can just demonstrate that you know what this concept is all about. And for the contextualize, it means that you should place that concept in a setting, like give it a backstory, connect it to real life, connect it to current events, give relevant examples to ensure that, oh, you can actually picture this thing in a real life scenario and you understand what you are doing. So together, what it means basically is that when you see a question, you don't just answer it, you build on it, you give the examiner the definition, the reason behind it, the real world example, and where it fits in the bigger picture. So yeah, I think that's all.
Okay. So there's another question that says here, but like it looks like a repeated question based on what you have already discussed on the slide. You said, please help I highlight the different ways to attempt lecturers' questions. And then the person added, for example, you gave for like the example you gave of Dr. Popola and others.
Okay, so I remember in, let's
Please,
say,
Nafisah, just a second, please, just a second. So I can
oh,
see a next question that's related to it that you can basically merge them. This one says the difference between discuss, explain, and briefly explain. So you can make these questions together.
okay, I will try my best. But for the different lecturers, you guys all have different lecturers taking 100, 200, 300 level and 400 level. So it would be very helpful to meet your seniors and ask, oh, how is this person like? What did they? I remember we did that with some of our seniors. We were asking, oh, this particular lecturer, what does he want from us? How do we attempt this question? It really, really helps. So I was giving some examples. I'll try to recall some very active lecturers. Let's say Dr. Bello. He would likely say what he wants in class. So you take note of that whenever you are in class. For Dr. Popola, he's a very simple person. If he gives you an example in class, it's very likely that he's going to give you something very similar in your exams. So just stick to his notes, pay attention in his class, follow his steps, and you're good to go. For Dr. Shimao, she's very particular on your fluency in English. So if you are speaking bad English or if you are not very fluent in English, I would advise you don't attempt her question because she's not necessarily going to judge you based on the content alone. For Dr. Salamatu, sorry, Prof. Salamatu, my mistake. I don't really know how to approach her question because her class is very vast. So whatever you're doing, just make sure that it's impressive and it's in line with what you did in class. Um, for Dr. Awal, he's a very straightforward person. So whatever he has in class or whatever he does in class, just give him back. You don't need to over explain. You don't need to do too much. Just give him back what he asked for. He just wants it to be very straightforward. For Dr. Hamisu is someone that works with what he gave in class as well. But he wants you to, as you guys already said, conceptualize and contextualize. I believe Anna shed light on that. For Dr. Kekere, he's also very simple. Just make sure that you draw your graphs properly, explain them properly. I don't think he requires too much from you. For Dr. Ado, he wants you to discuss, as in, if you can do 6 pages, do it. So let me see, which other lecturer is there? There are other lecturers as well, but okay, for your courses that you're doing from other departments, I think you guys can, reach out to your mates in those departments and try and just find out what the lecturers want. For Dr. Kabir, for instance, 300 level students, you guys should just read vastly. You don't just stay within what you did in class, but read the textbooks, the recommended texts. You can see from your course outline that he would give books like Holverian and others. So just read, make sure you understand the concepts, explain properly, but you don't really need to do too much in terms of length. And also give practical examples that were probably given in the textbooks, like the problem sets. I don't know if this answers your question, but in regards to the question of, yes, please, can you repeat the question of okay,
Yes, she said, what's the difference between between discuss, explain, and briefly explain?
Okay, so for that, I would say to discuss, obviously, you need to start with the conceptualization and the contextualization. You really need to go in depth and try and give light to the topic before you actually approach the topic. For that one now, let's say you have certain points under a particular concept, you outline them, break them down, break their concepts down, and then you now summarize everything. For the issue of explaining, you can take a similar format, but you don't need to do too much in terms of writing. You just need to explain broadly such that you can do maybe 2-3 pages. Then for briefly explain,
Briefly explain.
you highlight basically the most important things, go straight to the point, but still make sure you have, like, let's say a quarter page at least. Let it look like a point, not that you actually just write 2 lines and you move on. So I think that's fair.
Yes. So we have another question, but I would love to answer this question. So the person said, based on what Sister Anne said, she mentioned that it's important to know whether a lecturer wants long or short answers. But since Econ 203 is taught by different lecturers, their expectations may not be the same. Some may prefer short answers, others may want more detailed explanation. In this kind of situation, what should a student do? This answer has already been explained by Nafisah and Anne, but to add to you, the one advice I'll just give to you is, please just follow the study strategies they taught you, because basically, if you really know what you are doing, if you like understand the course and you understand the question and you just know what to write, I believe that if you can give them the right answer, even if it is short or it is long, believe me, they'll give you your marks. But it's something special to know how the lecturer wants it. But at times, you cannot like read the lecturer's mind, and we have a lot of lecturers in the department that you can't basically know the exact way you want them to answer your question. So one advice I would give you, regardless of who the lecturer is, just understand what you are doing and you are good to go. I don't know if I've answered it correctly.
Yes, perfectly. You've answered the question. And just to be very fast, because we have other things to do, the last question is where can we access the specific textbooks, materials the lecture required? In your course outline, I believe our course outlines are always shared before we even begin a course. So I think at the end of every course outline, you see recommended textbooks, or even in class, they might just mention, oh, go and do your research on this textbook. Make sure you actually take note of that and do your research. Some would even be shared to your class group. As bulky as they may look, you don't necessarily have to read everything. Just make sure you go to that topic that was being taught in class, read that topic and just understand. Don't let the bulkiness of the textbook scare you that you may not even want to open it. I highly recommend reading outside your notebooks, going to your recommended text to, give you a more holistic understanding.
So thank you so much. And due to time session, I'll be dropping just a bit of tips or advice, and then we'll be closing for tonight. So basically, what you need to do when it comes to study, first of all, you need to attend classes. Like as Nafisah mentioned earlier, like you can't compromise attending classes. So like basically, if you attend classes, it's going to reduce the confusion you have towards all the topics that were discussed in the class and what you need to study. And that is something special about economics department. It's not like mathematics that you can use PQ because you know that it's something that even if you miss class, you don't have any issue. And secondly, if you don't understand what's taught in your class, there's someone who does in your class. Maybe it might be a first class student. It might even be someone that has carryover, but they know what they are doing. Please just respect everyone, and you can meet anyone you believe you are very comfortable with. Reach out to them, and believe me, if they can explain this thing to you, you might understand it better than the lecturer. So always feel free to reach out to anyone you can. I would advise you first reach out to your own mates before reaching out to the seniors, because the seniors might have commitments. And thirdly, utilize AI. So any concept you don't understand in the course of your study, you could use any type of AI that you can trust. Gemini, ChatGPT, just ask it to simply explain it in a way you understand. And it's going to go a long way to help you understand the concept. And then YouTube, like is a game changer. There was a lady who reached out to me saying she doesn't understand so and so topic, this and that. And I'm not a scholar like that, but I know where you can definitely get resources to aid you in your studies. So I went to YouTube, search for a particular video out of thousands of videos. I knew which one to select and I shared it to her. Like I think up to more than 10 links, and she went through some of them, and then she came back saying that she now understands the topic so well, and like what was taught in class that was confusing her, she now understands it very well. And then PQ, yes, as our speaker said, PQ is a game changer. So try your best to reach out to your mates, to reach out to your seniors, to get PQs, and you can also use AI to generate questions to test yourself. And for those of us that have past questions, we have material, we should try to make sure we share it with our mates. It will go a long way to help them. And then you help your mates, it's not going to benefit you in academics, it will help you far beyond. It will help you far beyond. So please excuse me for a moment.
Okay, yes, sir. Before you continue, I just want to say something. For our 300 level students, one thing is that if you're looking for an A in any course, don't expect to leave 2-3 pages after you have answered all your questions. You should be able to fill your booklets and ask for extra sheets. Don't be shy. Write. Because at this point, you're becoming an economist. And if you cannot write and explain, lecturers are not going to credit you, even though you know the topic well. So yeah, you should always aim to fill out your answer booklets in every single exam.
So thank you so much, Nafisah. So basically, whatever you want to do in this life, just know that discipline is required. And if you can maintain academic discipline, then you can even apply that discipline to progress in several things. And I'll be closing this call right now, but before I close, I'll answer Hanifa's question. She said, how are they going to answer Dr. Bello's question? So I think this call has been recorded, so you can go through it later on because this question has been answered. But I'll tell you, no matter what you do, just make sure you can understand what Dr. Bello has taught in the class. That is just basically, if you can give back what he gave you in the class, believe me, you're going to pass. Though I don't know, he wants to test your logic. That is what he said, but just give him what he gave if you can't do anything beyond that. And don't stress yourself, don't overthink, and everything is going to be fine. So we have come to the end of this session, and I would love to thank all of you for your time and participation. And then to our speakers and everyone who has joined, I really appreciate your presence. This session would not have been possible without you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This call has been recorded, and probably I'm going to share the link, probably upload it on YouTube. And we hope you found this beneficial and you'd apply whatever you've learned. Thank you so much. Once again, no shortcuts. And I wish you all the best in your exams.